My name is Ken, and I'll be using Adobe Premiere to produce this portfolio. Design theory can be best described as a means of identifying and understanding the processes that go on behind the world of design. I have found that throughout these assignments, I have gained a greater understanding of what it means to be developing a good eye. One of these assignments in particular is during my exploration of finding my own personal brand logo. During the process, I was able to not only experiment, but gain a greater understanding of shapes themselves and design. Sketching through various inspiration sites, as well as successful case studies, I have found myself gravitating more towards simplistic and minimalistic design. This often included straightforward logos that only featured letter marks until it eventually simplified more into simple negative space and shapes. Position logo marks, which as you can see are rather symbolic while still representing the letter form K. I found these to be the most effective as it draws from inspiration from archived corporate logos. I believe the ability to convey so much in so little is just as much a challenge as creating a complex logo. After much thought, I decided that as much as I appreciated subtlety, I admired the boldness of composition too, which was, in my opinion, the most simplistic and stylistic that aligned with my aesthetics. I would also like to note that I chose the color red specifically for reasons that I will cover in the color brochure. Moving on to the typography posters, I would say that these would be my favorite project out of all of them. I myself find typography to be what attracted me to design in the first place, and also find myself experimenting with the different shapes that the letter form seemed to display. I first started to experiment with different layouts that inspired me over the years. I tried to see what common theme the ones that really stuck out to me shared, and tried my best to apply my own aesthetics to it. What followed were three rather interesting poster compositions that really challenged me to think differently. Given I already usually work in black and white, I found myself having a blast experimenting with geometric shapes as well as the complex shapes shared by the letter forms themselves. Some of the experiments include seeing these bold letter shapes as blocks or elements themselves to then structure my poster layouts as if they were pictures. Often referred to as a Helvetica alternative, most of these posters feature the font Arial, which is a common font that I usually identify with for its simplicity and minimalistic qualities. However, in the final composition, I chose for a condensed font known as Acrobat to better emphasize the shape given on a poster size of 11 by 17. What I found most interesting about these typography posters was when I started cutting into the letters and realizing that a lot of its unique characteristics were still recognizable despite having some of the features being removed. This led to an interesting composition in which I emphasized the illusion of cut-off shapes by introducing a drop shadow. For the homepage redesigns, I decided to tackle on the website The Border, which is a website that dedicates its content to skateboarding events. However, the website features no structure at all. Right off the bat, I decided that each of the different modules that were inside the website needed containers, and therefore most of my compositions featured a bunch of these containers that better illustrated the different sections in which these content lived in. Upon further experimentation, I was able to find out that messing with the different color schemes of the actual containers made for more contrast and more awareness for the different elements that lived within the content. My main concern, however, was losing the authenticity of the brand itself. So to counteract this, I wanted to keep the open flow of the original website, so that way original members from the website won't have a hard time transitioning from one UI to another. This led to changes within the UI to just be organizational structure changes while still keeping all the elements grouped in their proper structures. In my opinion, I believe this is a better choice considering that everything should be viewable within one page and the less scrolls, the better. Moving on to the color brochure, we were tasked to create a brochure with our favorite color. Immediately, I stuck to the color red for various reasons. In Western culture, I found myself resonating with the fact that it identifies with two very strong emotions in human behaviors, love and anger. As for compositions, I found myself choosing a bifold brochure to ensure maximum canvas size to play around with. I have always been drawn to minimalistic design, and I felt that the real estate provided ensured that I would have ample negative space to play around with. Immediately, the designs that stuck out to me were the Pantone swatches, and I immediately designed compositions that revolved around typography, making sure that the elements that emphasize color were subtle enough to add to the big picture of the brochure. It was at this final selection where I decided to emphasize objects that are known for being red, and using them as decorative elements, pairing this with the minimalistic typography and the interesting photography, and it makes for some pretty interesting composition. Most importantly, I have learned how that different experimentations in color may prove to be more than just aesthetics. I find it to be a valuable skill for conveying and communicating emotion. This skill is useful to me as a practitioner because it will help me convey messages in a more effective manner through all sorts of mediums.